What's up, you beautiful viewers? My name is Kevin Boudreau, aka Woke One. Now, a bunch of you have been asking for tutorials on how I draw my characters, and today it's finally going to happen. Now, if you follow along or you're subscribed and you've seen in the mornings, I like to do my morning sketches, and typically what I do is at least once a week, I pick one of your comments, something that you guys requested, and I do a drawing of it. If you haven't been following along, maybe now's a good time. Now, for today's sketch, I just want to do something for fun. I love drawing animals. If you can't tell, most of my drawings are animals, and I like to give them human attributes, making them doing a human activity, wearing clothes, stuff like that. So I think today I'm going to tell a little story through my drawing of a pirate cat that stumbled across some treasure. To do today's sketch, I'm going to use 4 different colored pencils. I have my light, my medium, my dark, and my white for highlights, and I'm going to be drawing on toned gray paper. I just happen to like the way that things look on the toned gray because you can get a lot of dimension with the 3 shades, and then the highlights will pop off of the gray tone. You don't have to. I've done stuff on plain white paper too. Maybe I'll go over that at some point. All right, let's get into this.
First off, I apologize for how light this is. I start all of my drawings extremely light and then commit to darker lines later. In this early phase of my drawing, I like to just focus on mapping in shapes and getting a good composition. Now, to me, shape and composition have a lot to do with one another and play off each other well. So for this composition, I'm doing a large head of the character to get the viewer to focus on that. But then I also want to have kind of like a 70-30% ratio where 70% is the character and 30% is this treasure box that the character will be interacting with. And we'll be talking about interaction later. Now I can start showing you guys the shapes that I was talking about earlier. So the red portion is the hat, the yellow is the character, and I picked green for the treasure box. I lowered the opacity so that now I can kind of show you a little bit more of the interior shapes. I'm mapping the eyes. I'm showing you guys the mouth, where the nose and everything is. And I also want you guys to remember what I talked about earlier with 70-30% ratio for the character being 70% and the treasure box being 30%. I feel like this helps keep the viewer focused on the character, but you're also telling a story with the other elements that are added. And you guys can see these are very, very simple shapes that help break it down. And there's also a good balance on the page. Everything is nice and centered where it needs to be, so there's a good composition going on. So now that we've covered shape and composition, I can start doing the darker lines to define the drawing more. While I'm doing the darker lines, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about interaction. Now, we know that the treasure chest that the cat found is in the bottom left of the drawing, so we need to make sure that the eyes are engaged with that object. Now, obviously, we could just make the eyes looking at the object, but we also need to consider expression. How is the character feeling at the moment? Obviously, he's very excited that he just stumbled upon this treasure box. But I want to go over some options to show you just how different things would be if I changed the expression just a little. If I added eyelids halfway down his eyes, he would look kind of sleepy. And if I angled the eyebrows downwards, he looks pretty angry. If I left one eyebrow up and one eyebrow down, it kind of makes him look a little confused. The mouth can also affect the expression. You could see here I changed the mouth, and now he looks kind of concerned. So when all is said and done, I think I picked the appropriate expression to show the interaction between the joy felt when he discovered the treasure box.
My rough sketch is done, and it's time to shade it in.
If you guys are curious about the pencils that I'm using for this, they are the Prismacolor pencils. I've been having a lot of fun with these pencils so that I can see a variety of tone and not just, it's still monochromatic, but I'm getting a variation of tones from light to medium to dark. Obviously, I can just press lighter or harder for lighter or darker appearance, but I like to have this super opaque finished sketch when I'm done. Also, each pencil has its own tone to it. So if I'm using the pink, that area is going to be pink. My mid-tone is more of like a magenta, and then the darkest tone is like a deep red. So I'm keeping this in mind as I move throughout the drawing. You can see this hat being such a deep red makes it stand out. The rest of the clothes will be dark red as well, and I'm going to use variations in the face to get different effects in different tones. I do like to layer back in with the white, which kind of makes it less of a red, more of a magenta afterwards, but it just gives a smoother look to it and more saturated opaqueness. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is details. Now, when I say details, I don't mean final details like making sure everything's smoothed out, making sure that, everything is just perfected. I mean details in the character. You need these details to help tell your story about the character and convey it to the viewer. Now, you can see here the cat is wearing a hat that is a pirate hat, but just adding that little detail of a skull on the front just kind of makes this like cutesy feel and just a little more liveliness to the drawing. So from there, I start thinking, what other accessories are pirates going to be known for? So I put the hook in the hand of the cat, which he's kind of using to raise his eye patch, because pirates also have eye patches, and he needs to get a good look at this treasure chest. And we'll just say it took him a while to get to this treasure chest because he's also got a little peg leg. You could even look further into the story of the character by noticing that, his eye works just fine, but he chooses to wear an eye patch. So maybe he's got some insecurities and wants to look tough. Maybe he doesn't even have a hook for a hand. Maybe he's just holding a hook underneath that sleeve. But that peg leg, yeah, he definitely got attacked by a gator or a shark or something. My point is to use the details to add to the story. Now, don't over detail it. Do just enough to make sure that the viewer can understand exactly what they're looking at. Now, another huge thing to consider when you're doing your drawing and shading it is where the light source is coming from. In this instance, the light source is coming from the upper left corner. Now, a simple rule of thumb here is everything on the left side will be lighter, everything on the right side will be a little darker. But we also have to consider all the curves and shadows that are cast from the curves. So since the light is above, if there was any object stacked on top of another object, it would cast a shadow onto that object. For example, if we look at the belly of the character, you could see the shirt is on top of the belly, and there is a tiny little shadow where the shirt overlaps. There's also another tiny shadow where the jacket is on top of the shirt. Now, placing highlights will also help show curvature to the objects. By placing highlights in the eyes, you know that the eyes are round. Another clear example of where the light is hitting is on the eye patch and on the top of the hat. That kind of shows that there's a little curvature happening. The last thing I want you to consider adding in is textures. Textures don't always have to be rough. You could see by adding the highlights on the hook, it gave it a smooth metal feel. But I also added some wood grain to the treasure chest itself so that it helps detail it and lets the viewer know it's made of wood. The final little touch that I decided to add was this little like symbol next to him so that you guys don't forget to like it.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you learned anything from this video, maybe leave a like and subscribe. And also in the comments, if you guys have any tips you want to share with the viewers, be sure to leave them there, or tell me what else you guys want to see and have me focus on. And also, you can see I have the artwork all framed up here. So I'm going to throw this up on my website, kbuart.com. It'll be available there, as well as stickers, prints, t-shirts, original artwork, hoodies. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff there to check out. And also, on another note, I just want to tell you guys to make sure that you're subscribed, because within a week or so, I'm going to put this picture into my iPad Pro, and in Procreate, I'm going to color this entire image and go over step by step how I do it, what I'm doing. On top of that, I'm also going to cover a lot about environment and how that affects your character. So I'm going to create an entire background for this, like the ones I've done in the past that I'm putting on the screen now. So be sure to stay tuned. Check it out. Keep a lookout. Should be out soon. Thank you so much for watching, guys.